Hi, I'm Elle, and here with me is Nancy Norbeck. She is talking about making bad art.
That's right.
Yeah. And as LJ, I want to discuss being a disruptive mother. So we are here just to have an open, honest conversation. I know you're probably like, okay, art and motherhood, how do those go together? What do you think, Nancy?
I think they can go together absolutely beautifully because, first of all, if you're willing to make bad art, then your opportunities to connect with your kids are enormous. And if you're willing to make bad art, you are probably more willing to learn from your kids, and your kids are amazing teachers when it comes to things like art and creativity and how not to be a perfectionist. So they go together beautifully.
I agree wholeheartedly because and for me, I call myself a disruptive mother because that's one of the jobs that I have, right? And because what I like to say is I am a woman first, and motherhood is something that I do. It's more than who I am, right? And that to me is a creative way of approaching what it means to be a mother. I'm
Yeah,
coloring outside the lines with my job, and I want to invite others to do the same.
absolutely. We color inside the lines way too often, and it restricts us in ways that aren't really necessary. You know, we all grew up being told to be good little girls and stay inside the lines and do everything that we're supposed to do. And there's a time and a place for that. You know, like I like to say, there are important rules to follow. Traffic rules are among my favorites. You know, they're there for a reason, and they're best when we all follow those. But there are other rules that we really don't need to follow all the time. You know, life is boring when you only paint by numbers. So, you know, when we take a chance and we actually do something like make bad art, and there's a real reason for making bad art. I don't just say that to say it. When you make bad art, you shut up your inner critic. It has nothing to say because you're not trying to do something perfectly. You're not even trying to do it well. So it's not looking for the flaws because how can there be any? You're trying to make bad art. And so you free yourself up to explore without that annoying little voice coming in and saying, you didn't do that right. You know, your corner isn't perfectly square and your line's not perfectly straight. And boy, you can't draw a perfect circle to save your life. It can't say that because you're not trying to do any of those things. So you kind of outwit it. It sort of has to go take a nap because
Mhm.
there's nothing for it to do. And in the meantime, you get to play. It's actually a lot like what's happening in the mind of a 4 year old who hasn't had an inner critic installed yet. Because if you've had a 4 year old kid, if you remember having a 4 year old kid, or if you're lucky enough to remember being a 4 year old kid, 4 year old can spin a tale and just go for a good 3, 4 minutes without censoring anything, without worrying about logic, without any of it. And you just sort of sit there and go, where is this coming from? And good God, it's hilarious and wonderful. And how do they do that?
And creative.
Right.
All of that. And that's, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And then we can take what you just said and apply it to motherhood. Because when we are in that space of being a mother operating in that job, so many times we have that voice like, oh, you should do this. You should be controlling your children. I was watching a show from back in the day, and there was a woman who was struggling with her children, and all these people looked at her like, why are you not controlling your children? And then she like jumped into a pool because her children wouldn't get out. And she was like, oh, I'm not going to be embarrassed. I'm going to jump in this pool and pull these children out so people know I'm in control of my kids and they will do what I say. And I'm just like, no, we get to be creative in this space and curious about like, oh, Are my children doing that? Why are they saying that? So instead of engaging in power struggles, as the powerful, resilient career woman that you get to stand in that security and be able to use that curiosity and ask yourself the questions, color outside the lines because society, trying to make cookie cutter mothers, like, really? Do we have cookie cutter children? Nope. So that's our masterpiece
That's
is is our children. That's our masterpiece.
Yeah, and as I like to say, the only thing that cookie cutters are for is for the T-Rex that comes out at Christmas every year, because it is not Christmas in my family until we have made the sugar cookie T-Rex with the green and red sprinkles on it. So that's what cookie cutters are for. They are not for people. You don't want your kid to be a cookie cutter kid, right? I mean, that's what's the fun of that? Half the fun of being around kids is to see who they are and what awesome things they're going to bring out of themselves and into the world for all of the rest of us, and what they bring out of you. Every kid is different and every kid brings something different out of us and to us. And that's the joy of it. So why would we cookie cutter people? That's just stupid.
I think it's habit. It's just habit. It's the way it's been and the way it's been done until someone chooses to disrupt that pattern. And that is what I am calling for is a disruption of that pattern, not in a chaotic kind of way, but in a way that has a purpose. It's not for the sake of, change for the sake of change. No, as women, we get to recognize it takes time, right? Everything is a process. When, not to be graphic here, but let's think about it. When a baby is created, that is a process.
Mm-hmm.
Takes time. And as a woman who, and regardless of if you are give like a natural birth, adoptive mother, foster mother, those are all processes. And all of those processes involve discomfort. They involve a shift in the way that the woman orients herself to the world. And she is getting ready to bring a new life into the world, into her home. And she's doing so with an intention. So that's what we get to do as women when we bring life into the world, and support life that's already here is a process. And every step of that process, there's change, there's growth, which requires the woman to be curious instead of authoritative and trying to cookie cut them work.
Yes. And honestly, I mean, that's part of why, my podcast is called Follow Your Curiosity, even though creativity is really my thing. And people sometimes are confused by that. Well, you can't be creative if you're not actively curious. It doesn't work that way. Everything you're doing, you're making bad art. Okay, I drew a circle that looks more like a lopsided egg, right? What's the lopsided egg about? If I'm not asking questions about what I'm doing and what does, maybe not what does it mean exactly, but what can I do with that? How can I play with it? What is this crazy thing that I just whipped up out of nowhere? Out of a scrap of paper and a paper clip, or whatever else you happen to have on hand. What the heck
Uh,
is this? And maybe you're not ever going to do anything with it. That's fine. That's part of the point of making bad art. You're not going to keep it. You're not going to make your own little make bad art museum, right? But as you're doing it, good art will sneak out with it. You might surprise yourself. You never know. And that's what happens when you follow your curiosity about anything. You might surprise yourself. And so out of the chaos, if you follow the curiosity, all sorts of fabulous things can happen.
Indeed. And to that point, there was one day where I love to color as one of my ways of decompressing, shifting between my jobs. I was coloring one day and then I was like, no, no, no. I don't, it was a book with flowers in it. And I was like, I really don't want to, no. So I just, I took out map colors, crayons, markers, and I just started coloring. I just did. I was like, I'm gonna mix it up, different medium and all of that. And so the first one, it was a little off. Okay. But I did it. And I was like, oh, the world didn't burn down because I colored outside of the lines, right?
Right.
And I'm coloring outside the lines and it's a different experience because I am an analytical person, follow the rules. There's steps to everything. There's a process to everything. And then I did something that was counter to the way I thought. And I had to sit back and look at it. I was like, huh, not that bad. So I tried it again on another day with the intention of like, yeah, I'm really not going to do this. And it wasn't as challenging that next time. And I liked that one. It may have been like messy or whatever, but it was beautiful to me. And when I showed my children when I showed my children, it was hilarious because they know me as that, you know, by the book, inside the lines kind of person. They've seen what I've colored before. And when I showed them these pictures, they were like, you did that? And I'm like, yes. And I said, and it doesn't matter the look on your face. I think this is beautiful. It's beautiful to me. And that also let them know, like, oh, mommy's making a shift. And she's being creative and coloring outside the lines, literally. And that has like what you were talking about earlier, enabling the ability to play. That is the language of our children. And so many times we want to pull them out of play, but play is probably the best way to teach our children lessons, is just play with them. And one, that's their comfort zone. They open up when they're in that creative space. And with what you offer in making that bad art, that's a connection space. And I recommend women, dads, even just have a conversation with Nancy and you guys get on and start making bad art together because the jokes that can come out of that, the moments of aha for you and your children, those are some wonderful memories.
Yeah, and you did so many things when you both for yourself and for your kids, right? You had the experience of going outside your own lines when you went outside the lines on your paper. You had fun. You explored your own curiosity, and then you gave your kids permission to play more. You modeled that it's okay for adults to play. You connected with them. I mean, it's so many things in that one simple act and the act of sharing it with them. And, and you notice that the second time it was easier. So the first time it felt a little weird, but the second time it was like, yeah, I don't care. I'm doing it again. Right. So it's just fun. And we forget how to have fun and that it's okay to have fun as adults. It's
Right.
okay to play. One of the great things about having kids handy, whether they're yours or somebody else's, is that it's an excuse to play again, right? And then as they get older, it kind of starts to fall by the wayside, but it's okay to bring it back out and say, let's play. Let's get a big sheet of butcher paper and grab the crayons and just have fun and draw weird stuff that doesn't have to look like anything. And, it's kind of like guessing what the clouds are, right? Draw a scribble and see what the heck you think it is. You can do all sorts of random stuff with crayons and a sheet of paper or, watercolors or writing bad poetry or whatever you want to do with it. And
Yeah.
it's permission for you, it's permission for your kids, and you can keep that going for a really long time. I mean, even when they're adults, you can do that.
Indeed, because to tag on to what you're saying, it's bigger than just the play because it is allowing a person's mind to remain creative
Mhm.
and active. And when you're in that space, you are in a space where you can see possibility so much better. So instead of as dwelling on what your child is doing wrong or what you believe you did wrong, you get to celebrate. No, like, hey, this is what happened when I did this thing. I get to learn from it. I don't choose to allow it to weigh me down. Because if we allow it to weigh us down, where's the possibility? Where's the lesson? But I recognize, excuse me, that so many times people want to define themselves by mistakes. They want to define themselves by, oh, I didn't do it right that time. And then feel that that's excuse me, that's the scarlet A on their chest. Like they get to walk around and believe that everyone sees that mistake from before, whether it is, your child, fell and you were right there and you couldn't catch them. Like, okay, you don't have you're not God, you're not divine in that sense of being all powerful and everything like that to prevent everything. We want to. That desire is there to protect our children from everything. But if we protect our children from everything, then what do they have?
Yeah, you can't do that. And
You
also, I want to encourage people to stop defining themselves by their mistakes because you are not your mistakes. And I recently heard a story from a colleague of mine who shows horses and was surprised at one point when she won a competition, even though she knew that she had made several really obvious mistakes. But the judge was not a North American judge. He was from Peru. And he told her that while a North American judge looks for the absence of mistakes, a Peruvian judge looks for moments of brilliance. That was my reaction too. And I think that's most people's reaction. I do not think that we notice our moments of brilliance when we are looking only for our mistakes. So we need to look for our moments of brilliance and allow ourselves to give ourselves credit for our moments of brilliance
yes.
instead of focusing on our mistakes because we all have moments of brilliance around our kids.
That is very true. And I want to say, I want to kind of end on that one and be able to say for all of us here, Nancy, it has been a pleasure to have this conversation with you. And what I want to allow you all to know, like you can get to know me better on an upcoming summit that I have coming up on the 26th. It's called Healthy, Wealthy, and Wise. And it is by Dr. Ali L. I cannot say his last name, so we call him Dr. L. And so that's coming up next Wednesday. And Nancy, what do you have coming up soon?
I have my podcast is coming up every week on Wednesdays, and my Make Bad Art course is starting next Thursday, the 27th. So I would love to have anybody who wants to come and spend 6 weeks loosening up their perfectionism, letting go of their self-judgment, making bad art. People who've taken my course have started having a lot more fun. Their energy is a lot more open and alive, and they become so much more creative. They say they've got words falling right out of them and, whatever other kinds of art they're doing. So I would love for you to come and check that out too. Love to have you.
So, Nancy, we're going to put our links in the chat for people to pick that up and register for your class that's coming up and to listen to your podcast, of which I'll be a guest on there too.
You will.
Looking forward to continuing our conversation. And the conversation that I will have on the 26th is from chaos to control, where working moms reclaim their time, their energy, and their sanity. So, and it is a free summit. It is live. I speak at 5:30 EST. So click the links in the chat. We want to hear from you. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.